Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is Doug Spates, the man behind the new scenic overlook on Shattuck's Hill in Derby. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You know, there's very few other spots quite as beautiful as the Shattuck Hill overlook. I think it's a toss-up between that overlook and the Lake Willoughby Basin, but
that's a beautiful one also.
Spot. Right. So you grew up in the region, and has that spot always captured your attention?
Oh, it sure has. Anytime we had friends or relatives come from other areas, I think that was the place that we always drove by to let them see the view down to the lake. It just captures the Northeast Kingdom to me in one beautiful shot.
Right. It does. It captures the fact that while we are Americans, we also we can actually see. We might not be able to see into Russia, but we can see Canada.
We can see Canada very clearly, and certainly you don't have to look very far up that lake, and you're right in Canada, as we both know.
The one thing over the years is I think somebody contacted me to ask me a little bit about the history of that spot, and I think I passed it on to somebody else. But the one thing I was certain about is the name of the lake has been, or the meaning of the lake has been changed over the decades a bit. There was a book put out I believe it was turn of the 20th century. It was called Beautiful Waters. And once that book came out, that was just the name of the book. I'm not certain whether they actually said the meaning of meant for Magog was beautiful waters, but ever since that book came out, people at least interpreted it that must be the meaning of Lake Memphremagog, and that's been written about. That was the meaning. So over the years, I finally decided. I've been hearing rumblings. I'd heard rumblings that wasn't the actual meaning. So I called up the Abenaki reservation at Odanak, who are, I think they're the foremost, most knowledgeable people on Abenaki history in Canada and Vermont, since this is their homeland. And they basically said what it translates to is large expanse of water. So
that's correct.
I think the tourist industry prefers beautiful waters because it's more romantic. So I was really happy that you folks actually got the name right, or the meaning. So tell me a little bit about the history of that land.
Well, the land itself, of course, was originally owned by the Shattocks, and the Shattocks purchased it. And as the story goes, the Shattocks were done with the farm and wanted their son to take over. Well, at the time, one of the boys was in the military and couldn't take over the farm. So the Shattocks sold it to the Buzzles, with a handshake that it would never be developed. But we all know how that goes. And while the handshake was good, it was never recorded and done properly for that not to be developed. So thus the Buzzles pass away. The family puts the land up for sale. And fast forward, we find out that it was never preserved properly. So the land and the house on that side of the road which is the north side of the road, was all up for sale. Um, and it sold, and then so I thought nothing of it after it sold, still under the impression that it wasn't going to be able to be developed, only to find out that it was developable. So I went back and talked to my wife and said, once and for all, we need to try to stop this, because once somebody builds a house or whatever they build there, that's the end of the view for everybody forever. So my wife and I decided to tackle the project, to see if we couldn't save that view in perpetuity forever, and so that we all could enjoy it, along with our children and grandchildren down the road.
Okay. So who owns the land now?
So the land, it's 25 acres, and the land is owned now by the town of Derby.
Right.
We raised all the funds to purchase it, and we went ahead and, once we had all the funds went into the coffers of the town. Once we had enough money to purchase it, then we took our purchase and sale agreement and assigned it to the town of Derby, and they then purchased the land with all the covenants on the land, that it can never be sold, never can be built on. The trees must be kept cleared. No racetracks, no walking paths. It is just to be left in its natural form.
Right. The one thing I noticed you did is, well, at least I think you did. Well, not you. I'm sure you didn't go down there with a chainsaw yourself, but you took down some of the trees that were beginning to cover some of the view. Am I correct?
That's correct. We logged off and cut off a large amount of trees. A lot of the stuff was not. It wasn't good logging trees. They took a little bit out, but not much. But we clear cut that whole area down to the edge of the snowmobile path, or very close to it. And that's the way that is to be kept now forever.
Right.
So it was amazing how much more it opened up the view after we did the cutting.
Right. Yeah. Because I have photos. I believe I have photos of when much of that was just open land, where the forest was.
Oh,
Because a lot of
yes.
people, yeah, what a lot of people
You're
don't realize, even though we are very youthful, you and I, no, in reality, we're
true.
not in the in the grand scheme of things. In our short period of time, growing up here in the kingdom, haven't you seen just many fields that are now forests?
Oh, absolutely. You only need to let a field go for 5 or 10 years, and the growth in that field of trees or popples and that type of thing is amazing how fast it will grow in. It needs to be, and you're right, Scott. There's a picture, several pictures out there that show that entire area almost down to the lake as all farmland at one time. If I had to guess, I would say it's early 1900s.
Right, right. I know. Uh, I don't know if you'd recognize the name, but you'd certainly recognize her maiden name. This lovely lady died at 100, I believe 101 or 102. Ruth Shattuck Austin. Um,
Sure.
Ruth. Now I can't remember if it was her family that originally lived on the Shaddocks that lived on the farm, but I know she was saying she spent time on it. I interviewed her at length, so my recordings would tell me what it was, but she talked about the farm, she talked about the land, and so and she recalled that when there wasn't much in the way of trees, but what is your favorite season up there?
Wow. So I don't know if you've seen it lately. I sent you a couple of pictures. On the roadside, we took a parcel of that where the sign is, and we turned it into all wildflowers. So as you enter the pull off, on the left hand side and roadside um, is all wildflower around the Shattuck sign. And this spring, it was white daisies in that field. Right now, it's brown-eyed Susans. I'm going to tell you that if you stand there and look over the lake, I got to tell you that late spring, once the white daisies have come in, I think that is, I think that might be my favorite time with the beautiful flowers that are there.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. There's a time everybody talks about the beauty of the Northeast Kingdom, but I've got to say is there's two times that I can't say I'm particularly struck in awe by the beauty. It's fall after the leaves fall and mud season. Early spring. Yeah. No leaf without those leaves and without green grass. Sometimes it's not quite as beautiful, but you
No,
can't
it's
take
not.
you can't take away the fact you have that beautiful body of water. Um, so how this project took off rather quick once you got off the ground, didn't it?
We from the time that we signed the purchase and sale agreement until the ribbon cutting, it was exactly 24 months to the day that we were able to raise the funds and do the project in its entirety. We were blessed to live in an area that people see the need to save such a view, and we were able to get. I think there's over 200 participants who have donated to the cause, and of course, what we never used. I think our claim to fame is that we never used one bit of local, state, or federal money to preserve this land. It was all done by local folks, which speaks so highly of the people we have in the area, in the area or a connection to the area,
Right.
because we also received a lot of funds from people who have a love to the Northeast, love and connection to the Northeast Kingdom, and donated money to preserve this view.
Right. And I think that's a really good thing for multiple reasons because, I think once you get government hands in a project and including their money or our money that they so graciously allow us to use, uh, I think I think it I think it muddies up things and it takes away a bit of local control, particularly if the federal government gets their hands in it.
Before the show, Scott, you and I were talking about how long it takes something to get done when the government is dealing with things. They don't move at the same pace that business people do in this world, and I dare say that no agency or no group could have put this together as fast as it came together. And
And,
and I
and,
and I want to give a lot of credit to the town of Derby, because it was the select board that really welcomed us with open arms for the project. They were only positive, and were very easy and helpful to work with, which was huge.
right. How much was yeah, I think it would be all public knowledge. How much was the land worth?
The land was purchased for $750,000. That was the 25 acres. We have raised over $1.1 million to do the entire project, And what we want is we have, or will continue, still have funds continue to come in. We want to have an endowment set up there, that, at one point in time, it'll have to be repaved. Every year, there's a lot of maintenance. It's the trash, it's the mowing. There's, the town is gracious. They do the plowing. There's now, because the fields, we look towards wanting to save the songbirds and any small deer and that type of thing that might be using that field. We now we can't hay it, so we bush hog it now, and we'll bush hog it sometime in the middle of August. So that'll be an ongoing expense, whereas if we hayed it, we wouldn't have that expense. But the trade-off is that we're looking out for, all of the birds and that type of thing that will nest in there. So it's an ongoing expense to keep it going, but we have the monies in the coffers, and people are continuing to give. That we should never have to, at least not in my lifetime, never have to ask the taxpayers for a dollar. Anytime we see a project like this and you go ahead and build it and you get it done, but the ongoing maintenance becomes a real issue.
Right.
That will not happen here.
Right. You say you spent about, well, it was cost about $700,000, but to me, that would be a piece of property that, if sold on the open market to the right person with really deep pockets, I suspect that the landowners could have actually got far more for it, way over the appraised value. Do you agree with that? Because you've been dabbled in real estate all your life. So, but would you agree that that's a piece of property that the family could have gotten more for it?
Well, as we know, it only takes one person to decide that they want it, and they're going to pay whatever price it needs to, to purchase it. The Delebreas were great in working with us. They were awesome. We had to extend the purchase and sale a couple of times as we were raising the funds. But you're right. Somebody comes up from wherever, north, south. They look at that piece of property and realize it is the gem of gems, and could have built a house and blocked the view forever.
Right.
So that's what I feel so good about. My wife and I are very happy that we know that land is going to be open forever. You never, ever go there that there are not cars pulled off. There are people, having a picnic there. There are 5 picnic tables. It's just a great spot for people to sit, have a cup of coffee, and enjoy the view.
And one thing we haven't discussed is the very safety nature of the new project, or the new pull off, because before, to a degree, you were actually taking a risk parked there, because if you had too many cars, it was such a small pullover that you were actually parked partly out in the road.
Oh, very true. And as we all know, if it, as you said, mud season, the wrong time of year, and it was muddy as can be when you pulled off there. And it was, if you had 3 or 4 or 5 cars pulled off, it was pretty dangerous on the edge of that road, particularly for anybody getting out. And now I think pull off holds at least 16 cars, and has room for a couple of buses.
Right. It seems to me that the owners throughout the last, I don't know how many decades, have been were at least very accommodating to people, because there were many wedding photos, high school graduation photos taken out in the field. And it seems to me that if they really wanted to, they could have shut it off to any form of public access.
Right. You never saw a sign up there that said no trespassing. You're correct.
Right.
Yep. I think they were
Um,
always very, very open to that.
right. So, so what else do you have to say about this project? It's obvious you and Vivian are very proud that you. I don't know if you would you say you led the charge then, because I know you don't take credit for everything because I've seen that. So, but is it a
Well,
proud moment
we
for
don't
you
take
and your
credit
wife?
because the old saying, it takes a village, and this
Right.
is exactly what it took. It took everybody believing in it, and there were a few people who didn't believe in it, which was fine. You just had to move on to the next person. But I would tell you that the majority of anybody I talked to then or talk to now recognize it as an absolutely gorgeous area. Um, basically, we led the charge in doing it. I think probably a lot of people wanted it done, but just, um, somebody's got to take the lead, and I think that's
Right.
basically what we did. We took the lead and we got it done. Raising the funds at times was a little difficult, because you're convincing people to, part with their funds for something for the area. I will tell you that, while I thought it would be a success, and appreciated by people, never in my wildest dreams did I think it would get the use that it gets there. It's nothing to go by and see 8 or 10 cars pulled off. And for, I would say, 99% of the people are very respectful of the area as well.
Right.
So that's, knock on wood, that's the other thing that's been great. We've had no concerns, no issues. People are very considerate about picking up trash, that type of thing. We do have a stand with brochures up there that people can pick up when they're there. We have a nice brochure that's done that we put in a couple of racks. And on a regular basis, my wife and I keep the racks filled. And it's amazing. We'll go 3 or 4 days, go back up, and they're empty.
Mm. No, that's good. And again, from a history uh, chronicler of history perspective, I do appreciate the work that went into trying to chronicle its real history and not kind of, too often people they almost some of them actually knowingly try to romanticize history just to make it fit their purpose. And I appreciate the fact that you did that. Now I passed it on. Like I can't remember who contacted me, but you
It
told
was
me
Bob. It would have been Bob Davis.
right, and then
Bob did the entire research and history of the area for us, for the project.
right, I because I remember then if it was him who contacted me, I told him the bit about the lake, but then I passed it on to the wife of your esteemed um, Rotarians, um, Andy Pepin's wife, Steenie Pepin,
Yeah.
who's Steenie. It's amazing. While Steenie is a Washington D.C. native, she's lived here for decades, and I'm not going to say she knows everything about the greater Newport area, but she's pretty darn knowledgeable. So I directed him to her, which I don't know if he reached out to her. So yeah, well, you did a good job. I appreciate you getting the history right, and because too often, as I said, uh, uh, whitewashing or sanitizing history often sneaks into such projects. So
Well, and we can see that just with what you mentioned earlier regarding the beautiful waters.
yeah, oh
Um,
yeah,
you know, something that we all have grown up thinking that was the meaning, only to find out it's not.
Yeah, I'm sometimes the fun police. I've even shot down things that I thought I knew, things that I grew up with, things that I actually reported as, when I was a reporter with the Chronicle, because some things you just know because you grew up knowing, but then when you researched, you realized you were wrong. So,
Yeah, it does
so
happen.
yeah. It doesn't surprise me though that so many people are stopping there because, I think sometimes people like you or I, we might still recognize its beauty, but I don't think we recognize its beauty the same way that newcomers or visitors to the region, because you get kind of numb to it because you're used to being surrounded by that beauty. So uh, I've brought many people. Like, I give tours to visiting journalists, whether they're doing anything on the Vermont landscape, whether it has anything to do with that lake, I still bring them to that lake. So
Hmm.
it's like I was contacted by a production crew just, I think it was yesterday. They're making a screenplay, and if they visit and if it involves Lake Memphremagog, and if they come to visit, they will certainly find their way to the pull off that you helped create.
Well, the interesting thing about that now, Scott, is it has a 911 address, which happens to be 914 Shattuck Hill Road. And the site that we have, Terry Lucas has been very instrumental in setting us up with a QR code and making sure we're on Google Map and so on. We've had, this was a week ago, over 10,000 hits for that site,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is amazing. He and I are both in shock that there could be that many hits on that site.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, there is a good man right there, Terry Lucas. Um, a lot of people don't know what he's done with his life, and he really wants the betterment of his childhood. His childhood area.
Well, he's been extremely. We have a board now for the Shattuck Hill project. We'll only meet probably 4 times a year, but Terry is on the board, and he's brought his knowledge and help to us, and he has been wonderful to work with
Right.
on this project. So there's a lot of people. I couldn't even. We'd be here for the rest of the day if I told you all the people who had helped us out with the project in some way or another. But he is certainly one that has helped us.
Yeah, Terry came on the show, and back maybe 3 4 years ago, and I think it took an hour for us to only scratch the surface of
Yeah.
his rich life. So,
Yep.
okay, well,
Absolutely.
we've got to wrap up. If people, so are you still taking donations, and if so, if people would like to donate, how do they do it?
There is a QR code if they look up the Shattuck Hill or they get the brochure, or somebody that wants to donate can send a check to the town of Derby. It's a tax deduction monies that can be sent to the town of Derby, and just earmark the check for the Shattuck Hill project. So I appreciate you taking your time to bring the Shattuck Hill front and forward, or continue it to be front and forward. We really appreciate it.
Right. Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you for helping to preserve that one of the most beautiful spots. I suspect one of the most beautiful spots in all of New England.
It certainly is gorgeous, and it's been a pleasure to go ahead and be in charge, or given the charge to make sure that was saved.
Oh, in closing, I can't let this escape me. As I am in awe that I now have two celebrities on at once: Todd Peranto, the son of a mayor, and Doug Spates, the former mayor, and all there. I'm always razzing Todd about he was the he had to have Secret Service protection when his father was mayor. So, and I also we also did a segment about whether his father was involved with Russian collusion when he was the mayor. So it was a short segment about Charlie's involvement with Russia. So
There we go.
all right.
All right. Thank you,
No,
Scott. Appreciate it.
all right. Thank you for coming on. And
You're
thank you
very
to the
welcome.
viewers. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.